Yeah, so I guess I'm just interested in knowing
honestly.
why you think it's wrong to farm humans, but okay to farm dairy cows.
See, I don't think there's going to be a way that we're gonna converse that's gonna make sense to both of us.
I could maybe clarify the question. He's just asking vegan explorists if we were to change a cow into a human into a cow. At some point, you're going to say it's ethical to farm them, right? So, at what point when we're converting the cow, is it once the intelligence drops off to the level of a cow? Is it once the human starts looking like a cow? Is it once the DNA changes to the cow species? Like, at what point is it actually? Are you, because you have a different ethical view about when you look at a cow versus when you look at a human, right? And likewise, we do too. We're just going to say it's wrong to farm both of them, but we're just wondering about the farmability quality. When does a human become farmable? When they start shifting into a cow?
Yeah, so we could like trade equalize them, right? We could give a human a cow tail. Like, does that make it okay to farm that human, or do they still retain moral value?
I'm gonna straight, okay? Our minds are thinking differently. What makes perfect sense to me will not make perfect sense to you, vice versa. So I'm not gonna cause an argument, okay?
Oh no, we're not arguing. This is just like an exploration of your justification for farming, right?
If it makes perfect sense, then just state the trait, state the difference. That
to me, how I was raised, this further, all this, that, in farming animals makes perfect sense to me.
There's nothing wrong with it. State what makes it okay versus what makes it not okay for humans.
The fact one of them is almost cannibalism, like it's consuming your own species. The other,
so it's just because they just happen to be your species.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so and by species you mean like some genetic quality that you have?
Maybe even more to say, yeah.
Okay, so there's going to be issues there, but maybe you'll agree. Maybe you won't have any issues. So are you saying that if right now you did one of those ancestry tests and you got your results back, and they said, look, we don't have any phylogenetic tree for you. You're actually new. You're actually not human. We don't know what to call you yet. You're the first step towards a new species.
Then it's based upon my relationship with said species. Oh, therefore, like, okay, so I'm not going to eat a dog because I'm just
noting that you did change the criteria there. So
yeah, well, once you put it that way, like, I'm going to change it.
Yeah,
in order to proceed.
So when I'm asking this question, I'm just wondering what the sufficient criteria is. So when we give where that view leads, we give the logical entailment of that you don't shift it, so that you're okay with the conclusion. And I do think that if we keep doing this, you'll keep shifting it until you probably at one point have to consider just the experience of the victims. That's all I'm saying. Like, at some point, the ability of what it means when we say it's wrong to kill a human is probably because you can imagine what that's like, and by imagining what that's like, and you're empathizing with another human, and then all the vegan says in response to that is, why can't you do that for the animals?
Okay, well, maybe
they can suffer in similar ways
that I just can't empathize the same with, because I cannot relate to the same with.
But then all that does, when you do that, which is fair, you can say that, but I'm just going to rephrase the question. I'm going to ask, instead of what makes it moral, I'm going to say, well, what makes you able to empathize with humans and not empathize with animals? So I'll just rephrase the question. It just pushes it back one step.
I suppose maybe the personality that I can see within a human that I can't see within a cow. That kind of way. The fact that I view these differently. The same way as
it's implicit. It's implicit that you view it differently, because you're saying it's okay to string one up for slaughter and stab them and slash their throat open, and it's not okay to do that to humans. And I understand that's entailed by the view, but it's not really informative if you know what I'm saying. I know
Okay.
that you empathize with one. I know that you don't empathize with the other.
Okay. In putting it one way, right? Let's just say, okay, I can't envision that happening, or I would refuse for that to happen to my mother, right?
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
but my mother's a human, my mother's a female. See, those two come together, right? So I wouldn't want to see that happen to any female, to any woman, right? But when it comes to a cow, it's a different species. It doesn't make sense. I don't have a cow, like, who has something to do with my life. Therefore, it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't, cross my mind twice.
Okay, I'm curious. You're fine with dog slaughter, right? Or dog or cats being slaughtered?
Because I've had, like I said, there's a dog in my house. There's a dog, I would say, my family. Cat.
Are you okay with slaughtering dogs, or do you object?
I object.
Okay, so a dog's not a human, and dog. You said it was the conjunction of being female and being human that you wouldn't want, like, to see your mom being killed. But when I take a dog, it doesn't seem like they have the quality of being human. So I'm still unclear about.
But they have
exactly
the quality
what
of a relationship towards me.
Yeah, but the question, because I mean, I could just post a photo of a cow having a bath, like in a cute little bathtub, like a little bubble bath. Cow wants to have a bubble bath, right? Same with a dog. Dogs enjoy it. So, and presumably you could, just treat animals better and form a bond with a cow, right? So I don't. It might just be that I'm assuming this. Most people, it's just how they were raised. You were taught that dog is a friend and cow is food, right? And all that the vegan is what I'm doing, right? Is I'm kind of pressing you on the category, right? What does it mean for the cow to be food and for the dog to be a friend? What is the actual difference? And I'm the point just is that it's not going to be a substantial difference. It's actually really hard to draw these distinctions. And at the start, you said it was very simple, that it just made sense to you. But in trying to explain it, I think it's just become very convoluted, at least up until this point. If you want to keep going, feel free. You can keep swinging the bat.
I'm not trying to convince you, right?
No, I'm not saying you're trying. I know you're not trying to convince me. I just have a question, right? What is the substantial difference that makes it okay, right? And if we just removed the substantial difference from humans, would it be okay to farm them?
Well, if you remove the substantial difference from humans, they're no longer humans. If you made me a cow and every other human a cow and we just swap bodies, then I wouldn't care if humans were made.
A dog's not a human. A dog's not your species, and yet you object to slaughtering dogs, right?
Yeah,
so that's
but
just not.
Like I said before, if I have a dog in my house my whole life, dogs are a part of family to me.
Well, let's just say it's a street dog. It's just a street dog. Let's just say it's a stray, or
Yeah, but it's the same as what I said about if, say, my mother. It was happening to my mother. I wouldn't want to see that happen to a female, right? To anyone. To anyone.
There are female cows who get slaughtered.
Yeah, but that's not the same species. I'm just saying, like, another person.
The dog's not the same species as you. This is where I'm getting lost.
Yes, and this is where I'm trying to tell you. It's not just the species; it's the species of which I have a personal relation with.
Yes, and that's what the question is, right? Like, why do you refuse to form because you have a certain type of relationship with cows if you're slaughtering them. You just choose to have a different type of relationship. And I'm wondering what's causing you to have that different choice. Because you could put the cows in the friend category of the companion animal category, the same category that your dog is in. And all I'm wondering is, right, and the point I'm just making is that there's not going to be like a specific criteria you can come up with that's going to be satiating, that separates the category of your dog being a pet and a cow being, like, strung up in a slaughterhouse and violently slashed across the throat. It's just something you reject for dogs, but there's not going to be this like laid out specific criteria that even makes sense to anyone in the audience.
Yeah, because it's something that goes beyond black and white. I can't look. I'm gonna be honest. I can't explain why this and why that. Right?
But
that's just how it is.
That's just making the vegan. That's just making my point, right? And that's why I went vegan, because I couldn't explain this difference.
Yeah, but in not being able to explain doesn't mean it doesn't exist or that it's wrong or this, that, and the other.
Yeah, but there's a problem with that. Is that if I were doing a same equal atrocity to humans, and then you ask me, well, why? What is different about I don't know, like this category of humans? Whatever category, like you can take like any minority, right? You could say, why are you discriminating against them? And I just said, it makes sense to me, but I can't explain it. Just let me do it. You would just have an issue with that, presumably. You would say, why can't you explain this? Why is it not just straightforward?
It's like, okay, not to bring it into something too deep, right? I'm a religious person. I can't explain why God is real, but I just know. Okay, I'm not going to go into it's the first comparison that came to my mind.
That's okay,
right? And
but we're not talking about.
No matter who tells me, but why? It's not going to change the view. Oh wait, why?
We're not talking about something like God, which is
it's
really just something that we because this is something about your mind. This is something that you do have access to. You don't have access to the origin of the universe. You really just have to take that on faith. But presumably you know what's inside your own head and why and what causes your desires. When you look at a cow and you think, this cow is food because of X reason, right? Unless you're saying this cow is food because of no reason, in which case that's my point. That would serve in my favor. And really, most people do go vegan when they watch animal slaughter and they think, oh, is it possible to be vegan? Is the food just as tasty? And there is tasty vegan food. And does it cost relatively the same? Yes. Okay. Well, if I can go vegan, if it's just as healthy, if not more, and if the taste is relatively equal, then why the hell are we farming animals? And if you've watched footage, then you know what I'm talking about, in these incredibly grotesque and abhorrent ways. Especially if humans are the most advanced, and ethical species, if we have all of this higher level reasoning, why aren't we able to explain, especially you, since you're a farmer, you should definitely be able to explain this. And the reason is probably just going to come down to this, right? It's your livelihood. And I empathize with that. I'm not telling you that you should, go bankrupt. I actually think that that's an important conversation to have. It's a different conversation than this one, though. But because first, it's just, can we justify this in principle? And it turned out that in the past, there was people had slaves. It was for their livelihood, the transatlantic slave trade. And when it was finally questioned, like, what is the reason for doing this? There actually just wasn't a good reason. They tried writing books about how different these people were to justify atrocities, right?
Mm-hmm.
They fought a war over this. It just so happens that when it comes to animals, people just don't care in the current paradigm. But I do think that there could be a paradigm where people care. I mean, there's a small demographic of people who denote themselves as vegans who actually just really just care about animals enough to not do this to them. But I don't know why that's not you, because you can't explain your non-veganism. That's just, and I'm not even trying to be uncharitable here. Like I
understand. If the way that my brain has just hit me to explain, okay, not the way I've been thinking the whole time, just the first thing that's come to mind, right? If you take, say the slave trade, right? You take the slave trade. Throughout all stages of the slave trade, there was always a group of people who were saying this is wrong, that there shouldn't be a slave trade, okay? And then up until there was a war fought over it, because that people grew, right? There were still people who thought it was wrong. But that's just because it's all they'd known, this, that, and the other. It made sense. Slaves were slaves, this, that, and the other. Until there was a war fought over it, and all this took over, and that this on top was a group of, we don't like slaves, right? Or don't like slavery.
Just to be clear, there are still people who
I understand, but there's always going to be an outlier in terms of percentages and populations and all this and that. Until they were on top, and they said to everyone, bad, everyone will follow suit and say, okay, bad. You know what I mean?
That's just how social norms work.
Exactly.
And by objecting here and by questioning it and just asking you to even just it doesn't even make rational sense unless you're saying this is my income. But that doesn't mean that it's moral. You could say I currently do this for my main source of income, for my livelihood, but when you think about slaughtering animals, you would not trade places with them if you had the qualities of your mind stripped such that your subjective experience was just the same of the animal. You presumably would still not want to go through that kind of fate, right? And when we euthanize our companion animals like dogs, we zero pain, and maybe it's a lethal injection, right? Farm animals don't get that same treatment. They actually get a treatment that is probably the worst than any human has ever really experienced. I
want to go against you on this, just of what I know and what I've seen from personal experience. I 100% agree that there is definitely going to be some animals and all who are subjected to extreme pain and this, that, and the other. Okay, and I do agree with you that is wrong.
Just the data says that 99% of farm animals today are they exist on factory farms. So that I'm just talking about the vast majority of meat, that any meat you can get at any restaurants or supermarket, right? And I don't know what kind of farm you work. I don't know what kind of operation you're running, but I've seen a lot. I've driven across my country and I've visited various farms. I know what it's like. And when someone says that it's different, it's really not, because they all sell their cows to the exact same slaughterhouse. Unless you slaughter your own cow. Do you sell your cows for slaughter, or do you slaughter them yourself?
We do sell them for slaughter, but
they go to the same slaughterhouse as all the other cows. So there's actually no difference there. They suffer the exact same end.
But I'm trying to say, I've been to said slaughterhouse for a few weeks to work, right? And I've witnessed, the execution and all the proceeds afterwards. And I can say that the execution isn't cruel, isn't agonizing, isn't torture.
Could you describe it just for the audience?
Yeah, it was. I can't describe it. It's like a gun, but it's not like a pistol you would have in, by yourself. It was some specialized type of gun that didn't shoot like a bullet, shot like a pellet of sorts. That's put up against the cow's head, right where their brain is. Fired. Done. Dead. Now there was also a section of which it was.
They don't actually die from that. That's incorrect. So
I can safely say when that bullet was fired, that cow was dead.
Unfortunately, well, it just sucks because I was hoping you would actually describe it accurately, and that's really not what happens. That's just a stun gun.
No. I can 100% tell you.
The reason they don't use real bullets is because it actually turns out that real bullets are really expensive, so they use a stun pistol, which just fires a pistol that retracts. And all that's done is it's a stun gun. It doesn't kill them. They still have to slash the neck. Them bleeding out is the cause of death. And we don't know for sure if the stun gun renders them unconscious or just unable to move. We don't know if it actually does do anything. But it was animal welfarists who advocated for the the advent of the stun gun. It's not a pistol, though. It doesn't kill them. It just renders a part of their brain, just punctures a part of their brain. But we don't. It doesn't affect the brain stem, right? So we don't know if they're conscious and just unable to move, and they're fully experiencing the gore or not. We don't know. Some pigs are, most pigs are thrown in gas chambers and rendered unconscious that way. Some animals are electrocuted. So, for example, lamb or sheep or pigs. Some pigs will just get electrocuted and then slaughtered. But we don't know. All we know is that perhaps we can decrease their, because there's just a revolving conveyor belt of maybe 1,000 cows to do in like an hour or something. It has to be done very quickly. And so even if there was 93% or 95% of these were effective, there's still enough footage out there to show that method actually has a failure rate. And I have footage of what that looks like, where the cow is clearly moving around, trying to get away, and just they don't die instantly either. It takes around 5 to 10 minutes for them to bleed out.
Okay, what?
So it's not this it's actually just the worst possible death imaginable. So I don't know what you're describing when you describe this this happy cow who ends up on this. They're often on the slaughterhouse truck too. They're dehydrated. They don't get water. Vegan activists will try to offer them water. Sometimes they'll show up as a vigil to try to give the cows just one moment of compassion in their entire lives. I know maybe you give your cows compassion throughout the day or throughout their lives, but it's really just this dark, narrow corridor that they walk down, and then they die. And they actually hear and smell the blood. They hear the cries, and I think that they know. I think that it's hard to make a case that they don't know. So given all this, it's just a really hard case for you to make. Okay. I just don't understand.
Just what I want to say is, in terms of the stun gun, okay, from my time there, that was what I was told. For bringing up a false point, I actually do apologize. I was told this, and I believe this. They stunned the cow. The cow didn't move. I just presumed they were, dead because they were held in anyway. So I just want to bring that up. That I wasn't trying to make it. Excuse me. Wasn't trying to purposely make a false point. I was actually unaware about that. But look,
I mean, so with the question of necessity, for society, do you think that a society could function without animal agriculture, or would society just collapse and it would be impossible or unfeasible to implement changes or in infrastructure to feed the world with more of a plant-based lifestyle?
It doesn't make sense to me. Okay, all the arguments can be made and it can be explained to me.
Is it unfeasible? Is it?
I don't think
logistic problems or nutritional problems or anything like this?
I personally don't think so.
Because for example, some non-vegans might say, yeah, but what are we going to do with all these cows that we currently have in the current industrial system? Or would we have to deforest more land? Would there be logistic problems with the amount of farmland that we'd need to feed the world on a vegan diet? Turns out it's far less, actually. It's 3/4 less. So we'd actually be reforesting the world under this, plant-based paradigm, because it takes a lot of, land to feed the cows grain or to fatten them up or to have pasture. All of that requires a lot of land to fatten them up. So plant-based actually just uses far, if you want to be an environmentalist, turns out being vegan is actually one of the best ways in terms of harnessing the power of personal choice. But yeah, nutritionally, do you have any objections there? Do you think that vegans are deficient in anything, or is it possible to be healthy as a vegan?
Is it possible? Yes, definitely.
Okay, so
it's clear, even down to athletics, some of the best athletes in the world are vegan. But is it doable for all? That I don't think.
Let's just start with maybe the first world, like the people who have the power of choice. What about them? Is it possible
again,
for most?
Is it feasible to all? No, I don't think so.
Well, like when you say all, because there could be these fringe cases of maybe someone just for sustenance, they're impoverished. They live in the third world, in a very impoverished nation, and they don't have access to a grocery store or even really any kind. Like if they don't have a choice, I'm not going to say that what they're doing is immoral, because it's actually just they have no choice. I don't think ethics are really invoked when we have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that for the most of us, and at least if we're fortunate enough to be in this Discord call right now, probably do have somewhat of a choice. So if you're saying that, because it turns out in some cases vegans actually just live longer, right? They have better health outcomes across the board. So I just don't know why you would unless it's just for your own income, right? Your own livelihood, which is something that I understand, and I'm sensitive to that. But I'm just wondering if it's unnecessary on a like at least for most people on a global scale to do this to animals. Would you say it's wrong?
As in a global industrial scale?
In the cases where it's unnecessary.
Where it's unnecessary.
I think you said in the majority of cases there are no logistical problems preventing people from switching to a plant-based, and if the world started shifting towards plant-based agriculture, there would actually be no issue there. It might actually help the planet. And then nutritionally, there would be no issue there. So I just take it to be the case that largely it's just not necessary what we're doing in terms of mass farming animals. And if that's the case, and if we examine, our reasons for doing it, it doesn't sound like there are really good reasons. Substantial differences between a cow and a dog in terms of the category of being a pet and the category of being slaughtered. I just don't understand what would possibly make the non-vegan case. It seems like stripping all of this down, just like what possible rationality could you provide, unless you're just willing to concede that maybe it is wrong.
What I don't want to. Okay, in terms of the industrial, okay, in terms of the say singular farms who have thousands upon thousands of livestock that are just in, out, done, money, food, gone. Do I think it's wrong? In how they do it, yes. Right? In what they do, no. In how they do it, yes. Like, from being a farmer, right, and from seeing how it all goes, many, many, many small farms, and when I say small, I don't mean like absolutely tiny. I just mean, average size, are no longer able to compete with super farms. Okay? So
that's just going to be a tendency of the current economic system, though.
Yeah. But, it's the same as everything, whereas like fast food is worse produced than good food. And I just think if that were to go, okay, and to be replaced by, smaller farms who can definitely, produce enough for the population who wants it, that's fine. But I don't think it should be abolished.
All the cows on the medium farms and the small farms and the industrial large scale farms all get sent and sold to the exact same slaughterhouse. So I don't understand.
That's why I say it can be altered.
Like how could it be altered such that you'd be okay with it happening to a dog, which it seems like morally there's not a substantial difference between that and your dog and a cow?
For me, there is a substantial difference. But what I'm trying to make a point here is it can be altered to satisfy those it affects. Okay, so if, say, hypothetically, just to say you, right? I know you're against.
But how?
Yep.
Like how? Besides maybe aesthetically, maybe you just find a dog more cute. But like, how are you differentiating morally where you object to slaughtering a dog and you don't object to slaughtering a cow?
It's like the same way I don't. If one guy gets punched in the face and another guy gets punched in the face, so maybe I care more about one guy than the other.
Yeah, but I'm asking why. Like I'm asking what. Maybe that one guy you just found annoying, or you just didn't like the way he looked. Maybe it is aesthetic, or maybe that guy was a dick to you and maybe he wronged you in the past. But I just take it to be the right. Animals on farms are just innocent, and they're cute. So I don't understand. I can't fathom what it could be about a dog that is so different than, because like you're not saying that you want to have one as a pet and the other you won't adopt. You're saying that one should be executed in mass scale and the other should be not, right? It's like actually a big difference in treatment, and yet there's not a big difference substantially in the traits that they have.
Again, it just comes down to how I view a dog, how I view a cow.
And I suppose it's just going to bottom out here that just doesn't make sense to me. Or I mean, there's a lot of non-vegans in the chat who maybe they have better explanations, but at least you don't have a good explanation, or you haven't provided one, which is
again, it's something that is beyond.
It's actually just unfortunate for like I categorize the cows as victims of your actions, and it's just unfortunate for them that you can't even explain it.
It's just simply livelihood. That's all it is.
Okay. Well, that was my prediction. So, I guess thank you for the good conversation. Maybe someone else wants to talk to you. I'll be around the server if you want to join. Ping me some other time.
Yep. Thank you. Best of luck.
All right. Cheers, man. I hope you do think about it a little bit more, and hopefully,
I respect what you had to say and all this and that, and it's gone. Good conversation.
I wish, and I also wish that you have, with whatever your future is, I wish you livelihood. It's just I just wish it wasn't, at the expense of cow. Like maybe if the cows just didn't think and feel, I would be more okay with it, but they do think and feel and have complex interactions with each other where all the cows want is to like have a family and roll around and play with a ball. Like cows are just as interactive and intelligent as a dog. So I would not object if they didn't have those traits. I think that the things cows have are just things that most of us care about in dogs and in humans. And they don't lack those things. So I personally, that's why I'm vegan. So I'll leave it there. Thanks for the talk.
Look, we can agree to disagree.
Can I add something to this real quick?
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to say I appreciate the polite dialogue. That's really nice of you.
No problem.
One thing is that, if you do ever decide to, change your mind on this, there are programs like the Ranchers Advocacy Program, where cattle ranchers in Texas, they had been farming cattle and sending their cows off to slaughter for decades. And then they turned vegan for the animal rights and converted their animal farm into an animal sanctuary. The animals get to live out a nice, happy, long life, and now they rescue other animals and give them sanctuary there as well. And this is called Rowdy Girl Sanctuary in Texas. They have the Rancher Advocacy Program where they help other ranchers who want to change their farm into plant agriculture. So they give them tips and stuff. So you can find resources like that online. And the Vegan Society in the UK also has a similar program where they help farmers convert their farms to growing, mushrooms or whatever kind of plant product. There's also vertical farming is a new thing. Vertical farming is like a skyscraper of an indoor farm for plants. So it goes up like a skyscraper instead of going side to side and taking up a bunch of land. And and these buildings can be built on top of soil that's where it's depleted, where usually you can't grow plant agriculture because the soil is so messed up. So you can just build these big enclosures like a greenhouse, and the plants are stacked on top of each other, and this uses like 95% less water than traditional plant agriculture. There's no need for pesticides because insects and animals can't get inside the buildings, and it's just way better for the environment, and of course better for the animals and better for our health as well. So just some things to consider, the Rancher Advocacy Program.
Well, I appreciate, I do, that you telling me. Now, I shan't be using them, I know, well, as of now, but I still, appreciate. And I just want to say to, like, the three of you here and to the audience, right? I came here with the intent, not of arguing, just, I actually came here with a question, and that has been answered yes, because it wasn't, it wasn't a yes or no question. And, I'm not trying to claim I know everything and all the facts and all this and that I'm right and you're wrong, right? I came here asking, what would you guys say to me? And I figured that out, and for that I'm grateful.
All right, cool. We'll come back and talk again, All
right. Thanks very much, guys. I'm going to head out.
Yeah, thanks for coming up. It was a good discussion.
Have a good day.
You too.